Hello, everyone, and welcome to Next Big Future. I have my friend Randy Kirk here with me, and we're going to talk about the big news about Robotaxi, paid Robotaxi coming to Austin in June of this year, which was on the earnings call, one of the big announcements. But we also want to see how big things get the 2025 and 2026 and 2027 from Robotaxi. Um, Based upon what they were saying. Any
Because there
comments?
will be
Yeah.
bears. There will be some bears out there, Brian. There will
Hmm.
be some people who will think that it's going to roll out really slowly and that people will not be that interested and that other competitors will be out there that Tesla will have to somehow overcome.
Right. So other than the existing competitors of Waymo, there's no one else. Tesla just released a video showing a robo vacuum, not a bot, but a robo vacuum system that can clean out a cybercab. So the video just shows this long arm of a vacuum thing sucking up things from inside the vehicle and even sucking a backpack to move it out, um, which is actually very important because Farzad made a calculation that the cleaning fee would be $350 per month, or basically a little over 10 cents for 3,400 miles driven.
Mhm.
So if you have a robo cleaning system, and you let's say they roll into Austin in June, at the main um, supercharging point, just like you have a vacuum at gas stations or air filling thing, you would have that at certain of the supercharging stations that they would use. They would say, okay, these four we retrofit with a vacuuming system for servicing our robotaxis, however many they need. Um, so that could bring that down, to 2 to 3 cents, $100 per month, and that drops the cost per mile from, for that calculation, from 37 cents down to 30 cents.
Right. Mhm.
And the big fee here that he has is a big insurance fee.
Mhm.
I think Tesla will be self-insuring.
Right.
So then that goes to the actual accident rate that occurs, which could
Mhm.
be far, far less. If they were somehow accident free, then the 7 cents, 3 cents, you're looking at 15 cents per mile, right? And I think Tesla has talked about 20 cents per mile
Right.
for costs. Um, and then we can get
I think
into, yeah,
Kathy Wood got it down even lower than that at one point,
right,
but
right.
yeah.
But then there's also the initial, perhaps higher costs versus when you have things scaled up.
Right.
So, and even CERN Basher didn't have $1 billion of robotaxi revenue coming until 2026 in his scenarios. And now it's not inconceivable they could get $1 billion this year in 2025, even though you start halfway through, we can get to $1 billion on that. And that could suddenly, you know, give, a 50% or double bump, especially if you have a licensing deal, thing going into China as well. Um, Morgan Stanley has had a projection that would have 1.7 million vehicles in a Tesla fleet in 2035. But next year, when Tesla's talking about going US wide, they could have that number or more with that, which would be even from Stanley's conservative projections, only $78 billion in profit.
Only
And
78 billion.
yeah,
Only.
yeah,
We
from
got to always, I always like to keep in mind that I always do it as one Apple. So
right,
Apple has a little over 100 billion a year in profits.
right.
So this would be like three-quarters of an apple.
Right. And CERN Bash are talking about 30 PE, it'd be 2.3, trillion. But you wouldn't have 30 PE if you went from nothing to suddenly huge, where the growth just went nuts. Because you're going to be going towards 10 million, 20 million vehicles in 2027, 2028, because you go worldwide with it. And then CERN Basher talked about, put it into a chart, which now maybe we're going to say is going to be outdated. So let me look at one more graphic here, um, which is um, ARK Invest crude analysis from before. Nothing on them. They projected it several years ago around ride-hailing addressable market and getting to $1 per or $1.10 price point and being able to address a $1 trillion market if you have that, which is, I think, also what Farzad was doing when he was looking at it the other day, was that 20% penetration of the US market would get us up to around that $1 trillion revenue mark. But that um, the, Archimeds was talking about $134 billion. Let's call it $100 billion for the $2 to $4 per mile charging level. The price you charge, where you go like at Waymo prices or above, but in other locations. Because Waymo can charge more than say Uber in where they're operating in San Francisco and Phoenix and still get customers. Um, so that goes to what would happen this year that you and I discussed, that the first pricing for Tesla in Austin can come out higher, $2. They don't have to go straight to, okay, we can drop down to $1. They say, what's the demand? We'll charge based on demand. So
Yeah, I think Uber is averaging something over $2, two and a quarter. I've
mhm,
seen different numbers from time to time. I'm not sure anybody knows for sure, but Robert
Scobel.
Scobel was on my show 2 weeks ago, and he'll be on again this weekend on Optimus. But anyway, Robert was saying that he's gone out and tested it, and people are willing to pay more
Mhm,
to go in a vehicle that does not have a driver.
mhm.
Because why? Well, because the driver's a pain. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Yeah,
Anyway, so people, are women are a little afraid of the driver, are small people like me are a
yeah,
little afraid of the driver.
yeah,
I think it's more about the irritation of the driver. Maybe he wants to talk. Maybe he's got weird music on. Maybe
yeah.
there's smells from food prep or whatever. I mean, it's just so many negative aspects of the driver.
Well, I often in a supermarket, Safeway or whatever, I would go to the self-checkout just because it's faster, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'll go to the cashier if I have some special thing I need to do. I got to get some coupon to do something weird that, although even for that, I'm using my phone to have the coupon thing. But there could be some situation where I'm just buying something I want to talk to the cashier before I like, run it through. But 80% of the time, 90% of the time, I'm using self-checkout.
Well,
So,
I'm an outgoing person, right?
mm, yeah,
You know this about me. I like people. I am really excited to engage in conversation with people, but I know a whole bunch of introverts who, if they never had to talk to another human in their life, they'd probably be thrilled. And
mhm,
so I would say probably at least half the population has no interest in talking to the driver. And then even my half of the population that is more inclined to engage in conversation, I would say way more than half of the Uber drivers that I've come in contact with, I didn't want to have a conversation with them.
right. So in terms of the stock price things, because everyone's concerned about what happened with the Tesla stock price. So it hasn't moved yet after the announcements, right? So there certainly is a level of disbelief, and the funds have not chosen to make really big positions. Some of them could probably just buy slowly without moving the price and build a position, but there's no one big market moving who's like aggressively doing something. So there, as we get closer to June, like when things release in June, I think you were expecting the stock to double or more, right? You thinking like $900 in June, July after the rollout happens, right?
Yeah, I think there's going to be quite a number of steps between now and then. I did a video on Friday. I'm not sure when you're watching this video, but on Friday, if you go to my channel, you'll see a video that I did there talking about the step by step by step. But briefly, roughly, in terms of the robotaxi side of it, I think that analogy that Elon, or the not, analogy is the wrong word. Anyway, the he talked about the toe and then the foot and then the leg,
Right.
and I think that that's going to happen twice.
Mm,
So the first toe, foot, and leg is going to be with regard to full self-driving being unsupervised.
mm,
So first you're going to have it go out to the regular guys, the YouTubers that are always the first ones to get the latest FSD. And so they'll have it for a couple of weeks, and then it'll go out to the next group, and then it'll probably take 6 weeks for everybody to be on unsupervised. And I think Tesla will use that 6 weeks to generate massive amounts of data on unsupervised rides, and then that'll coincide with roughly June 15th or whatever when they decide to start out in Austin. Now you start the next toe, foot, leg, which is tested in one city, tested in two cities, tested in five cities, and then I think maybe you go crazy.
So there's probably like three parallel tracks related to the surge in the stock price, right? So what you described is FSD 14,
Right.
basically. So you have the unsupervised capable thing that people can buy or subscribe to for FSD. So even though you have the paid version, that paid version is basically safer than human driving and doesn't need supervision.
Right.
So, but people can purchase it in bulk for their vehicle
Right.
ahead of that. That will happen in you're saying March,
Like
April,
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 1st of April. Yeah.
right? And go wide by May,
Right.
ahead of the paid service
Exactly.
in Texas,
Right.
right?
And as those steps are happening, those will all have their own impact on the stock
Right.
because they will be proving the case.
Hmm.
Yes, there really is such a thing as unsupervised rides.
Yeah.
Yes, it's working. People are not dying. In fact, fewer people are dying instead of more people. And that'll also open up, I think, the opportunities in terms of what do you call it, the other countries approving FSD and approving FSD unsupervised, maybe again a couple of months out. But as those things are happening, those will also increase the stock because you're going to sell more FSD.
Right. And then they also already have for a year supervised employee driving,
Right.
where they're giving rides to employees on a supervised basis. So they would get unsupervised, um, but they could still have a safety driver. Now, they could have that right now in terms of a version 14, 2 months or 3 months out,
Right.
that they could be using right now. And they could be scaling it up, having more and more employees using it right now.
Mhm.
So there's 40,000 some employees in Austin and Fremont for Tesla, of the 140,000. So by doing that rollout, they can get to substantial scale. They could be at, dozens or hundreds, but as they get more and more confident, they would want to scale that up to do more stuff as a service because they're already doing unsupervised 1 to 2 mile drives from the factory to the loading dock,
Right.
right? So they're already doing for their own purposes unsupervised rides. And how much could they scale that up? And what are the use cases could they decide will we have the confidence to do um, more unsupervised rides internally? They could do it for a Boring Company, right?
Yeah.
In Vegas. They could. Where else do they drive?
SpaceX in Hawthorne in Los
Right,
Angeles.
right. And they could do the mix of supervised and supervised for semi-truck because they're using their own semi-trucks. Up to 1,000 of those are their own vehicles driving their own cars around. And there probably are less used roads that they've occasionally may use where they could test it out. They could certainly shadow mode test it out or have with a safety driver
Right.
more activity. So the amount that they could scale up internally is to 1,000, 2,000 vehicles. So the people who think that they'll stay tiny, 1,000 vehicles or less, I would say by the end of the year, it should be, even though they haven't gone out to other people, it my over and under would certainly be around 20,000 to 50,000 vehicles by the end of this year. What's your assessment
Yeah,
of how big?
I think that's very reasonable. We know that there are plenty of states and plenty of cities that basically would just say, "Yeah, come on." I
Mhm,
mean, I mean, in Florida in particular, Texas,
mhm.
probably, Nevada, because of all the capacity that all the things we're already doing in Nevada. I mean, there's a few states where we have, let's say, more freedom. I don't
Yeah.
know, and then
Well,
also have a
Phoenix
relationship.
and Arizona are already doing a lot of, they're
Yeah,
the Robotaxi capital
right,
where they're saying do as much as you want. And
right.
their roads are very open, sunny, safe, relatively easy to do.
And complete grid. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like completely squared off.
right.
Yeah,
Right. Versus a city like Boston, where
yeah,
you have a bunch of like, messed up roads and that kind of thing. So the bigger places, probably Texas, Houston, Dallas, where things are like large, flat, where you just have built out, that you would have easy roads to drive.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
So when you start talking about the cities and the states that have more or less been invitational,
yeah.
and all of a sudden, if you're ready to let owners put their cars out in the fleet, well, then you could grow the thing from zero, or from a few thousand Tesla fleet vehicles to 20, 40, 60, 100,000. I mean, it's these are major cities.
Right.
I think, of the top 11 population cities in the country are in Texas.
Hmm.
Phoenix is now one of the top 10, I believe.
Hmm.
San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Jose are all in the top 15. So
Right.
between those three states, you've
Right.
got a lot of major cities.
Right. And they already have loads of Teslas in California and in Texas, and they
Yes.
were saying that they're most confident there. Arizona is probably another one. So and there's several states that if they said, okay, now we're ready to go out in substantial numbers, you could get to 100,000, 200,000 vehicles very quickly. Like I think just California going all out, where you say, okay, half of the vehicles go into the system, right? Then that could be 500,000 vehicles, right? Because California has the vast majority well, it's a really large number.
I did the numbers on that. I think it's 1.4 million in
Okay,
California. I'm
right.
almost I'm almost positive that's enough. You know how I am with numbers.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's 1.4 million just in California, and that was months ago.
right.
Yeah,
So it would, just a state going, because they say, okay, we'll go US wide, but maybe we'll do some states first, and
right,
California, Texas, Arizona could be the first ones,
right,
and then rapidly, Florida, et cetera. That could be really big numbers. That even if you only do like 5 or 6 states, you could get to 60, 80% of the Tesla cars in the United States by just doing that number.
right.
And that end up being going back to um, the the Stern Basher numbers, if you have let's say 500,000 um, of the let's go here. If you go to a 500,000 robotaxis at what, $150,000, if you're going at a higher price, um, let's say what, $2 per thing, 50,000, let's say $100,000 per vehicle in terms of total revenue. And then 500,000, that would be um, $50 billion, right? So that would
Right.
be more than his 2028 number and closing in on the 2029 number, which would then quickly get you to um, 10 to 20 trillion dollars worth of valuation. Um, and so the awakening of the fleet, that initial pop of, and now it's all working,
Right.
right? Um, is a 10x transition from now to there. That can happen in 2026. And then 2027 would be, they have CyberCab being built. Well, in 2026, they have CyberCab being built,
Right,
perhaps 1 to
right,
2 million, right?
right,
So that would mean that their network vehicles, if they get, let's say, only 1 million of the 2 million that they're planning to build,
right.
that suddenly um, increases this number up to, well, then you start lowering the prices because you can get the volume.
You might,
But
maybe you do, maybe you don't. And the other thing is, we got to remember that the ones they put in the fleet, they make $60,000 a year on.
right,
The ones that they put that we put in the fleet, they make maybe $6,000 a year on. So there's a very substantial difference between the ones that they put out versus the ones that you and I put out in terms of the Tesla profitability. So if they put out, 1 million vehicles at $60,000 a piece, that's 60 billion in profit.
right. But so you're talking about the purchase price of FSD or the subscription or something like that, and then getting a cut of it. So in terms of the $6,000 that they make, or that they would have
6,000 would be roughly the 10% of what I make is what they make, or it might be 20%. So maybe they make 10,000, 10,
okay,
12,000. But there's going to be there, they will put out a formula. I'm
yeah,
100% sure that they will give a turnkey formula.
yeah,
If you do this, if you put it out this many hours, you'll get this many rides, and blah,
yeah,
blah, 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 blah. And
yeah,
you'll have to wash it this many times. And here's a great way to do your charging. I mean, it'll all be laid out in a beautiful video.
right, right,
And but in my estimation, it turns out that maybe Tesla makes somewhere between 6 and 12,000,
mhm,
and I put my vehicle out there at full time, full time.
right, right,
But when they put their vehicle out full time, they
mhm,
make 60,000.
right, right. But I think everyone else is trying to shave the numbers down a lot in order to not say, and then we go up 10 times. That they're trying to like shy away from that. That it's too much of a chat GPT moment, just like Nvidia
Yeah.
2 years ago, down at, $200 per share, going up to split adjusted like, 2000 or something like that, right? That the surge in profitability and everything else will be happening. That so getting it out there in large numbers uh, in their own network, and then awakening and going to the rest of the fleet, increasing it by another 10x, right? So expanding the Robotaxi fleet and then making their cybercab. So there's these multiple events as things ramp up, so that by the end of 2026, what are we looking at? You have cybercab, you have awakened fleet, Europe and China maybe. Is it the full what by 2026 we'll be looking at
Not
14
only
million, 15 million vehicles?
Yeah, not only Europe and China, but think about Seoul, Korea.
Mhm.
Think about, Australia. Think about, yeah, I mean, there's a few big cities outside of China and the United States that are pretty significant.
Right. So what things would slow them down? So you're saying that so it slows down in 2027 to 2028, like to get to like
I think the biggest question mark becomes once you've and this is another thing you and I just talked about in the green room is what's going to happen to Uber, what's going to happen to Lyft, what's going to happen to Waymo.
Mhm.
And my take on that is that all three of them have already taken all of this into consideration. They're not stupid people.
Yeah,
These people are known in the Silicon Valley as smart people. Okay.
yeah,
So, in fact, well, Waymo is owned by Google.
yeah,
So they said these are smart people. So they have to know that they have to have a plan in mind
mhm.
for what happens if, in fact, this works.
Right,
Because if it works, they're dead.
right.
So, but will they be dead if it comes out on Tuesday? Will they be dead on Thursday?
Hmm.
No, they'd be dead next July. I mean, a year from July. It'll be a slow, situation where Tesla comes in, starts
Hmm.
to supplant some of their stuff. Well,
Right.
during that time, in my opinion, what they do is they just put their Waymo badge on a Tesla,
Yeah,
and they just they join the network. They go out and buy
right,
Tesla cars, put their badge on the car, and they make their 40,000, 50,000 net per vehicle that they've already spent some money, trying to get in the business.
So, but they haven't announced any deals. And from
No.
Tesla's point of view, it's just like, Hertz, before you were buying 100,000 vehicles, you did it too early and
Yeah.
they depreciated and all that kind of stuff. So in this case, you must buy the vehicle and you must buy FSD,
Right.
right? That'd be the best thing. While Tesla still is offering that option, right? They'll say, okay, 100% FSD purchase, 100% vehicle purchases.
Right.
So they haven't pulled the trigger on that in a major way, although they have quite a few Teslas already in their fleet.
Of course, well, yes, yes. Of course, Lyft and Uber do, or Uber in particular.
Yeah.
But here's the question you asked is what happens. This is my view. I'm a
Mhm.
marketing guy, and I like to think about how this works in the marketplace in terms of how consumers respond. So as this transition takes place, I think they transition, but ultimately they're 1.8, I forget the number on that, somewhere close to 2 million vehicles, maybe more, between Waymo, Lyft, and Uber and private cabs around the world. I think it's over
No,
2
no,
million.
they have 6 million drivers,
6 million drivers. Okay.
7 million drivers for Uber,
I'm glad you
and
had
there's
that number.
20 million drivers for Didi, which is
20 million drivers for TV.
for the, and then each driver has his own vehicle,
Yeah,
right?
now China's going to be a whole nother price. That they're not
Yeah.
going to price the same as the United States and Europe and Australia and South Korea and Japan, whatever. So
Mm.
slowly but surely there will be, I think, some ability to use price to get more rides.
Yeah.
But I think it could be easily through 2027 that you'll be able to charge over $2.
Mhm.
And then you'll start to get into the Kathy Wood thing where it comes down to where my wife and I had the conversation last night. We only have one car now.
Yeah.
We're like, well, I'm not going to give up this car and take Uber all the time. No, but I would take Waymo. I would take
Tesla. All.
CyberCab all the
There we
time.
go.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Right.
If it was a buck a mile, not if
Right.
it's 250.
Right. So then the other parallel thing happening is that the other companies would say, which we said before, that they would start purchasing a lot of Tesla cars with Robotaxi.
Yeah,
So Tesla had the capacity to make 3 million cars this year.
yeah,
So 1 million more cars, even like potentially 1.5 million if we really push it to 2 million, right?
right,
That all those vehicles would be pretty much with FSD. That
right.
if you start getting people in line, it's like, well, you must buy FSD, and
Yeah,
we may even start raising the prices a bit in order to address the demand. If
yeah,
demand shoots up,
yeah,
we're gonna raise the prices again
absolutely.
because hey, we have to.
Right.
And then both those things, FSD and I think the prices start going up
Mhm,
to match the demand,
mhm.
right? So if you get the 1 million more vehicles sold with FSD,
Yes.
then that's $50,000 uh, of vehicle price, 40,000 plus 10,000 or something like that. Just ballparking it, and then the profit goes from 5,000 to $15,000 or something like that
or
per
or
car.
even more, as Elon has said in the past. Now,
Right.
I've had a couple of my friends, couple of the co-hosts say, well, maybe they'll just keep the FSD price, at 8,000 or whatever, 10,000. Well, maybe they will, but it'll be in that package,
Mm.
that you're paying for it by the mile rather than paying a big lump sum
Right.
in the beginning. Now, I think it'll be different on the trucks, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
Right. So all that pricing will be sorted out by the time they open it up to anyone else. So this year we have this, but then next year, but then the purchases of the vehicles will happen this year
Yeah,
because you must have, if you're not going to wait, if you're Uber and Lyft and your future depend upon getting those vehicles,
right.
then you have to purchase this year, even though you don't turn them on until next year, right?
I'm expecting the used car market to be devoid.
Yeah,
There'll be no used Teslas.
right,
You won't be able to find used Tesla.
right,
And then they'll start buying up the new ones. Yeah.
right. Because it'll be the smaller players, someone who's running like 10 Teslas on Turo now,
Right.
who says, okay, I got to get my CyberCab and I'll operate it. And people who worried about what about the cleaning, it looks like there could be robo cleaning at every supercharging station.
Right. Right.
So then that won't be an issue, right?
Right.
So operations will be easy. I just like send it out and it will go clean itself and come back to me, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And then there could also be some um, network insurance issue. So then they'll just kind of like work that into the fee. That
So
will,
Turo already does that.
yeah,
Airbnb already does that.
right.
You know, you with Turo, I had cars up on Turo, and you can continue to carry your own insurance on your vehicle if you're planning to drive it, in addition to putting it on Turo, or you can, you can choose, and then in addition, Turo has their own insurance, so you're kind of doubly insured. So I'm sure that Tesla, I think what Tesla will do, because they already got their own insurance company, is I think Tesla will say you're going to be an idiot not to take
Yeah.
our insurance because it's only going to cost you like, $20 a month or something, or 5 cents a mile, or, something like that. And that'll be to cover the weird circumstance
Mhm.
because basically these cars will never, never, ever run into another car or into a
Mhm.
person or a dog. They're just going to be trained not to. They'll do anything but,
Yeah.
run into something.
So in terms of the net income for this year, that 1 million cars purchased with increased profit of 15 to 20 billion dollars, 25 billion dollars worth of profit, versus last year at what, 8, 10 billion, or what
Went
was it?
down the fourth quarter, it was down to $5,000 a car, I think, or something.
Right. So suddenly, the profitability surge happens this coming year, and then another billion from Robotaxi, which would, but the known that's going to be going to 100 billion,
Right.
200 billion, 300 billion very soon, right? In 2027, 2028, when things go ballistic. But the anticipation of ballistic would start to occur
Right.
before the end of this year,
Yes.
right? And then 2026 we're scaling up, going all to the network, and that full realization. But how much does the market like have to wait to see? Oh, that they did California, that would say, okay, it's going to be starting to go wide. So we're not full US yet, but we got California, and that's a huge number and a lot of vehicles and that kind of stuff. Does the so much would have happened at that point? They've sold 1 million vehicles.
Yeah, I think the biggest question that as an investor that I would have at that point, and I've owned over 40 companies. So, and in fact, I had a used car rental car business for a while too. That's another one of my businesses. Is the biggest question I'd have is what, how is it working for everybody? You
Yeah.
know, is it smooth? Are
Mhm.
people running into, as owners, are these owners running into problems? Are they, is it, what are the problems they're running into? Are they really making what they thought they were going to make or somewhere close enough to make it worthwhile? Those would be the very number one issues. But then the second thing would be, is the networking working? And I think that'll be the part that will be obviously true. Finally, is there problems? Is there headlines?
Mhm.
So you can always have the headline, Tesla runs over small, whatever.
Mhm.
And there's the headline.
Mhm.
And and then Tesla will say, well, look, we've got the video.
Mhm.
We've got witnesses. We've
Yeah.
got all this stuff that we can prove that it wasn't the fault of FSD.
Yeah.
And but that'll be fought out in the press.
So in terms of uh, the profit revenues, like show me the money thing that
Right.
all the people want to see, is that we should this year, by the end of the year, and should be really Q3 or even part of Q2, where they're rolling it out to all these you know paid and other supervised FSDs going out to version 14, which is good enough for unsupervised, going out to all these people, that the FSD adoption rate would suddenly spike up.
Yes.
And it should also go into that 100% mode of, if you don't want to do it, I want your car with the
That's
FSD,
right. That's right.
right? So then that frenzy in the latter half of this year should get to the point where all North American vehicles, and really all the ones in Europe and China, should start anticipating that that's going to happen. So then they should start, ideally, would happen with the approvals to do FSD over there,
Right.
right? That suddenly the FSD going to almost all vehicles happens, and then the price of FSD should start increasing at some point in
Mhm.
there to balance it out.
Probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get phone calls, I get letters.
Mhm.
The phone calls and letters I get are, do you want to sell your Inglewood house?
Right.
No, I'm not interested in selling my Inglewood house. I'm perfectly happy to keep my Inglewood house. Okay, what you're going to get in the future, if you have FSD or you don't have FSD, is can
Right.
I buy your Tesla vehicle? And let's say that the retail or the used car value of your Tesla is around 35,000. All of a sudden, they're calling and offering you 70.
Yeah.
So I've done some polling on that. And it takes about $8,000 to get people to sell their Tesla.
Mhm.
So if there's an $8,000 advantage over what the used car value used to be, they'll flip.
Right. So then the total number of vehicles in the United States or North America would be
About
about 3 to 4 million by the end of
no, about
25.
2 million. About
All
2
right, about
million.
2 million, but you have another millions
Yeah,
sales
by then you'll have
by
another.
then.
Right.
And the surge in sales we're expecting
Right.
could see instead of 1 million could go to 2 million,
Right.
right? So
Right.
then you'd have 4 million by the end of the year, and all of them could have FSD at that point, right? Which
Right.
would then be so that extra 2 million vehicles plus or plus FSD sales of up to
8,000.
3 to 4 million, that would be it was 4 million times $8,000. That would be $32 billion, right? So that, and then all that profitability. So that goes to the 50, $60 billion of profit this year. And then next year you have Robotaxi generating a bunch of revenue, adding another 40 billion, but it's, or 50 billion or something like that. So getting up to more than an Apple of profitability, but with, really fast growth, right?
Yeah. And so, like I used to say to Warren Redlick when we'd have these kind of conversations on his back of the napkin math, I'd say, okay, now take it in half. Oh,
Right,
it's still a huge number.
right, right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Warren did videos, based on after the announcement saying that, our estimates, he referred to me, over $1,000 by the end of this year makes total sense. And if we're getting to $50 billion of profit plus energy plus cars and everything, then the and the multiple should flip up because you're going to have margins that are software margins, et cetera, right? Then you're looking at for $5 trillion, 5x. You look at that 2,000, $2,500 per share, or even more, and then heading towards a $5,000, $10,000 per share next year, anticipating 2027, even though things haven't gone fully crazy yet. And we haven't talked, and we'll talk another video about Tesla
Yes.
Mod.
Yes, this weekend we'll do another video on Optimus. And yeah, so somebody said about my video this morning, they said, so Randy, you're saying the stock's going to triple this year. And I said, yes. And so if it goes to 1,200, which is the number I was putting out, if it goes to 1,200 this year and then it triples again to 3,600 and then it triples again to 12,000, to whatever that would be, 11, whatever. Um, it's not crazy. I mean, those
Right,
are not crazy ideas that
right.
when you've got, okay, Kathy Wood has said, we've said, I
Mhm.
don't know how many people have said, Elon has said, Robotaxi will be the biggest business there's ever been in the human business world. There's never been anything that's going to be as big as what Robotaxi will be.
Mhm.
So that would be, 100 billion, 120, 130 billion in profits,
Yeah,
the Apple current levels,
yeah,
has to beat that. So he believes Robotaxi will beat Apple by itself.
right,
And that doesn't count the cars and the semi trucks and the energy and all the rest of it. And then he says, all of this will be a rounding error when it comes to Optimus.
right. So it is not inconceivable that if there's the revenue surge where they're buying all the vehicles and everyone's putting in, all the companies are putting in FSD on it, but if that scenario plays out, then the, and people want to talk, $3,000 to $5,000 per share, right? That is not inconceivable that that could happen. That, oh well, it's a piece too much. It's just like at that point, the frenzy of it's all happening, you know, could be
Yeah.
the case. So
Well,
so
what we've left out in all this is your
mhm,
favorite subject,
mhm,
which is semi-truck,
right.
and Elon still won't give us the satisfaction of saying he's going to ramp that even to my number of a
Yeah,
million.
right,
So right now we're only looking at 40,000 a year. And
right,
if you put FSD on those 40,000, I mean, it's a lot of money. I
right,
mean, a lot of money. And but if you start making 100,000 a year or 200,000 a year or a million a year or you're 4 million a year,
right.
it's a whole nother huge, massive. And I don't understand. I now do understand. We do get why he's lowballing the numbers on Tesla Semi is because of batteries.
Right.
But I'm assuming they'll figure that out. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know what the holdup is, but I'm assuming that they'll figure out the battery problem.
Right. And the pricing um for Robotruck, if I have FSD for Robotruck, like don't even need to consider a Robotruck with a semi without Robotaxi. It's going to be
Right,
Robotruck.
right.
So then Robotruck will be a unique product, and they'll be able to sell it like $600,000 and then have, $40,000 or $100,000 per year
Yes, correct.
charge because they're replacing your driver. So but a driver who can drive 3 shifts
Right,
and doesn't have to stop, right?
right.
So increasing utility of that. So the margin on that will be crazy. So people who are saying, oh, it's going to be $200,000, whatever, they don't get this. No, it's Robotruck. So
Right.
the price will be higher, and
Yes,
everyone will have it with the software to have whether the driver,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And then the question would be, do the licensing where someone could make another vehicle, like
Oh,
in order
yeah.
to make the million
Right.
vehicles, that would be the question because the economic demand will be so high.
I
Because
think I think it's another one of those cases though, Brian, kind of like Optimus, where you could give the license to everybody. You could give it to all of these guys, and they can do 50,000 trucks a year or 20,000 trucks a year. They don't have the bandwidth to
mm,
to to ramp it up to 500,000 or to a million or whatever. There's
right,
only one guy in the planet that's got the bandwidth to
yeah,
really put up a new truck business that ramps up to a million a year or something.
right, right, and they would only license it to someone who would have scale. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Freightliner, show me how you will convert all these vehicles to
Right.
do what needs to
Right.
be done. How do you get the batteries? Because
Yeah.
if I need to do a million semi trucks, I need to have a terawatt hour of batteries. I need to have, 1 million times a megawatt in
Right.
order to do it. And their efficiency is all done the work. So it's more like governments would say, I'm going to supplement Tesla to to scale this out to the million, 4 million vehicles
Right.
because a fast conversion on that would mean we save 2 million, 4 million barrels of oil per day or something like that. And for China, that'd be strategic. Even for the US, if you want to do it, use that oil for something else, you can. And, less pollution, all the other things. But also, I can then move goods across the country 2 times faster, 10 times cheaper
And for free. Yeah.
for free. So that would be like a tax cut. Like
Right.
if 10% is supply chain movement, if I drop that to
At
1%,
least, at
at
least
least, right?
10%. Yeah.
So then it's a national global strategic priority to get that transferred over. So the same thing for Tesla Bot would be for the robotaxi road trucking is that nations, states, California would say, we need to support this thing to speed you up because you're the one that has to do it. And we'll speed you up, we'll work in other partners and do whatever it takes to get to this faster point because our global thing is like we could give the equivalent of a 10% tax cut
Right.
to everyone by getting supply chain more efficient,
Right.
right? And that's just on the Robotruck side, not including the Tesla bot side, where that could
It's
get even more efficient.
a whole nother.
Whole other thing. Right. Right. So so I think on the our end of year 2025 and 2026, what's our um, sane number and what's our, things go really good number now?
So right now, I've done mine. I've redone it. I'm still at 1200 plus
Mhm.
plus. Now I was at 700 plus plus, and I guess I am still in a way
Yeah,
because if something happens that Robotaxi doesn't come on
yeah.
until January instead of in June,
Mhm.
then that would take away a plus. And if Optimus for some reason isn't going to be sold in the first half of 2026, my other plus goes away. So I could still be at 700.
Right.
But right now I have a high degree of confidence in both of those happening
Mhm.
in as planned, as
Mhm.
just discussed.
Mhm.
So in both of those cases, I'm at 1200 for the end of the year and then some. But
Right.
I'm not, I don't have an and then some number for you, Brian. I know you're at 1500 last I checked.
Well, my bear case is now, I think, $1,000.
Okay, Bear. Okay.
Bear case. My base case is what my old bull case at like 1,500,
Okay.
right? And then my Super Bowl case, where it's the everything sells out and they're all buying FSD in order
Right.
to do that, right?
Right. Right.
For this year, I can see, $3,000,
This
right?
year.
This year, right? And then next year, because I expect, at least California, half the United States to
Right.
go, you know, a couple million vehicles, that should be like $100 million in profit, blah, blah, blah. And that should be, you know, the 5 to 10 trillion dollar range,
Right.
right? Uh, Before Tesla bought, and if full Tesla bought things go, you know, getting up to 20 trillion is, let's say it happens in 2027.
Right.
That, not everything perfect kind of
Right.
thing happening, but the the and then I guess the feeding friendly thing, I have to cut that back because of the just like Nvidia is only selling it like 20 or 30 30 PE because they keep expecting it to end. That there's a disbelief. Although here it's like there
There's
wouldn't be a
no,
disbelief of like if people
no,
stop buying. Yeah.
no, it's completely different. I look at Nvidia. I think I have even, well, I do. I have way more knowledge about Nvidia than the average person on Wall Street.
Yeah.
But I'm not a computer scientist, which is
Right.
why I've got you
Yeah.
on my Rolodex, is
Yeah.
because I need people that are smarter than me to tell me about this stuff. And I listen to the All In podcast and the BG2 and all these guys because I don't get it.
Yeah.
And so the thing about not getting it is it's really hard to not imagine that there's a limit,
Yeah.
that there's some kind of a limit to how many of these chips will be sold, and that other people won't jump in when there's an 85% profit margin.
Right.
I'm a business owner. I'm like, how do I build chips?
Yeah.
I make 85%. So other people jumping in, as well as some kind of a real limit for people on Wall Street that have less knowledge than I do about it.
Yeah.
No, 30p is probably all it's ever going to get. But an Optimus robot, no, it's not that hard to figure out.
Right. And
Uh,
then
so a
same thing for the
self-driving,
Robotaxi that you can
not
see
that
it
hard to
will. Yeah.
yeah, not that hard to figure out. And it's going to be somewhat. Now, I think Robotaxi is a little harder to figure out in terms of what the full TAM is.
Yeah.
So when do people sell their car and start only taking Robotaxis?
Right.
When do kids that are already not buying cars when they're 15, 16, 17, they're not buying cars or even getting their licenses, that are just taking Uber, does that accelerate?
Hmm.
Does it like turn out to be like no kids get
Hmm.
cars when there's a vehicle that's $2 a mile and no driver?
Right.
Uh,
But the early purchasers of it, where the people are somewhat, still reluctant to adopt,
mhm.
they can deliver goods
Right,
cheaper and
right.
stuff like that. So that you can have this movement of supply chain thing for um, Amazon deliveries and other things
Sure.
that would um, justify those first vehicles. And there will be, people are using Waymo. So
Right.
it's in just in a few cities, but you can go global at, that was going to argument saying that the ride hailing Uber type market, more expensive market, is still a 100 billion, $200 billion market,
Yeah.
right, per year, right? So scooping all that up is still a highly valuable thing, and that needs 2 million vehicles roughly to
Yeah.
to to serve that market.
Right.
So getting that first 2 million, even if there's adoption issues, would get to that level. And then if you have that number, people would say, okay, yeah, other people are taking it. It's working at 10 times, 50 times what Uber was doing, or what Waymo was doing. So then it's an Uber scale and beyond. So we're getting more comfortable with it.
And then, I always like to say, Brian, at a certain point, it just doesn't matter.
Right.
At a certain point, it's like, is the stock selling for $6,000 a share, or is it selling for 6,500? I
Yeah.
think I'm going to be okay either way.
Right. Right. Okay. So we have to do another video
Yes.
later today on Tesla Bot. So anything else to say about Robotaxi in the near
I'm
future?
done. I've got it.
Yeah.
I think we got it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's looking really good. So looking to see, the um, FSD 14. We're expecting that March, April. So look for that.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Talk next time.